to the Crazy Agent Dinner Party.
Nobody helps you. Just
Part group therapy, part inspiration, entirely for real estate agents to dish on this crazy business we're in.
Yeah, actually, my mom would be like, Amanda, I cannot.
Come on in, have a seat at our table. And remember, real estate is crazy, and you don't have to be. Welcome to the Crazy Agent Dinner Party, where we dish on this crazy industry known as real estate. Here are your hostesses with the mostesses, a combined 40 plus years in real estate, coach Konversion Kourtney, and the real estate mom you never knew you needed, Amanda, the marketing mama. On today's menu, we're dishing up the thread of buyer's remorse, preventing the unraveling of a transaction.
Oh my goodness, Jenny, our faithful, trusty, beautiful sidekick. You definitely don't want to pull that thread, because then if you do, they're going to be standing there shirtless because that entire sweater of buyer's remorse is going to be completely unraveled. And so, yes, agents, we get you. We are you. And that's why every week we love to gather together for part group therapy and part inspiration, but truly entirely for you, so that we can all learn to, sell more real estate, but also have way more fun in the process of doing it, right?
I'm always like, have more fun.
Fun. Well, because we've been doing it for so long. And honestly, why do it if it's not fun? Why do it if you don't like it?
Right.
And that's why we thought, well, why don't we take this show on the road and have, our experience, let our life's work for you. Because when she says combined 40 years of experience, I'm like, oh my word. Like, is my neck showing? Like,
I was in a room. I was in a room the other day. I have to tell you this. I was in a room the other day, and as I'm going around the room, I'm like, how long have you been in the industry? How long have you been in the industry? And like 5 or 6 people through the table, it was like 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, 20 years.
Yay.
And I was like, we've got over 100 years experience here.
That was what
crazy.
We did. You weren't there. I don't think that you were still doing title at the time, but I did that with the mastermind mamas, which are Ellie and Mary Colgan and Shar Kanech, and a bunch of other awesome agents who, again, combined. Melissa Stalzer was also there. I think we had 160 years experience on the panel.
Fantastic,
and it really is fantastic because it's not just the years of experience, but it's the transaction history and the comeuppance of it all. I mean, I think probably when we both started, I know you're like 3 more years than me, just even the technology of remember the listing boxes with the little radio on them that told you about the property. I mean, there's so many old school things that you're like, wow, back in my day,
we had a map book that we would map it out in the map book for all the showings.
Well, and come on, I remember as a young agent, having my printed map list, putting on my mascara, eating my Taco Bell at the same time. This is I'm an octopus driving around in your mad scientist car that is your office, right, as an agent. I don't miss those days. I love that my car tells me exactly where to go.
Yeah, right.
I mean, honestly.
And so now, with crazy agents out there, lots of technology, they think that they have it easy, right? So how do they keep it together without unraveling things?
Well, they usually don't, which is hence why we're here. Because again, they do kind of let what we would call regular real estate life really start to unravel. But buyer's remorse, honestly, buyer's remorse is a big deal, and I definitely wanted to dig into that today because I have a salacious, juicy story to share, which I love this, and I would love to get your take on how you would answer this. But I did want to, for starters, I had to point out that no matter if it's your first house or your 50th house, or if it's, a $100,000 house or a $10 million house, no matter what, the threat of buyer's remorse is always, always, always there, because the buyer just feels like they're questioning whether or not they're getting a good deal, even if they know for a fact that they are. It's just a part of that emotion of spending that much money. It never, ever goes away. I mean, think about yourself when you buy or sell shoes.
When I buy shoes.
Or just really a house, right?
Well, and I don't know if it's such a good deal. Just stuff comes up, right? Life.
Did I make a good decision?
Did I make a good decision?
Right. Because it's really
not necessarily a good deal.
The place of limbo. The place of limbo. Who likes to live in limbo? I hate it. I love routine. I love something that I can be accustomed to. That's why I'm such a systems person. I want it to be in the box or whatever. And so, yeah, when you're in limbo, you get kind of Looney Tune. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that a buyer will take that buyer remorse, that threat of it, and they'll take it personally. And then it starts to unravel. When the reality is they really need to, understand the I guess, be empathetic without being pathetic, which let's go ahead and dig into the meat of this because this is really great. So Jenny, take it home. Share with the class the text that one of our agents, this is an active contract that we have right now, and a very good agent who's super diligent and has done all the legwork and has, won the buyer a very, very good deal and a lot of cool things. What was the text? What did it say?
The text was that she had a dream last night that there was a bad vibe about the house.
A bad vibe.
So she was feeling kind of negative about the house now.
Even though she's got all of her closing costs paid for, it came in over appraised value. Inspection was flying colors. They literally looked like at a gajillion houses because she was at a price point that's very competitive. But now she's got a bad vibe. So
and I think that's okay, right? I think it's okay. I mean, I believe that it's okay for buyers to have a bad vibe. That's life.
I think
their
feelings
life.
are okay.
Feelings are okay.
But we don't make decisions based on feelings because that would be crazy, right?
So it's important, like with this scenario or any scenario with the buyers, is to get back to their why. Get back to why they're buying a house, because stuff comes up, things come up. They have dreams. They're not doing the right thing.
Like I had a dream that you literally just won the lottery in this house and
we're moving up.
You were moving up. Your skin suddenly had 0 wrinkles. You were flawless. You were, I don't know, all the good things in this house. So, but obviously that's not how you're going to do it. How you're going to turn them back from their total unraveling of buyer's remorse is, in my opinion, you go back to the motivation, you go back to the data. And for me, especially when I'm working with buyers, but with any buyer or seller, you go with the big three.
Yep.
The why, when, and how. Why do you want to buy and sell, or buy or sell? When are you going to do it, and how are you going to do it? Because you can't. I don't think so. You can't get a house with hugs and kisses. I mean, maybe some people can, but
I know. Well, maybe. I am surprised at how many agents will start showing homes without knowing.
Yeah, because
their
how
motivation.
do you know what your job is? Yeah. How do you know your mission? Because that is your mission, right? Especially the win. Because what if the buyer that's recently separated or whatever, and they're not anywhere near getting to a different place in their life, and they're like, let's go look at houses. You don't just that house isn't going to be here in 2.5 years when you are divorced and moving on with your life, So you have to really know the win and be realistic about it. Not saying that you don't meet up to develop that relationship, but really understanding the big three and making that the core foundation of your mission as an agent is a great way to protect yourself and your time and your sanity, but also to protect your buyer. And not saying that their things don't change. Obviously, you could show people houses all day long, and then suddenly now, well, you know what? We've decided that we only want to look at houses with pools. Okay,
and
no problem.
And so I have an example too of a buyer who has just been defeated for one reason or another, right? We were under contract. The contract didn't go through, and this buyer's defeated. And so has gone through 2 different lenders. And then on the 3rd lender, my first conversation with the lender was let's not talk about credit. Let's not talk about what she's qualified. She's defeated right now. Let's get back to why she's doing it. Right. Why do you want to buy a home? And that first conversation was getting her back to getting excited about buying a home because she was defeated.
Well, and you have to, honestly, so I'm a big fan of having paper files with me, and I think active listening is probably your number one, maybe not your number one, but it's a huge skill set that you can have as a great agent, because you need to be taking more notes, less talky. Believe it or not, when I'm actually working with clients, I don't talk as much, but because I'm actively listening and I'm listening to what they don't say. And I love being with buyers and houses, especially listening to what's important to, one spouse over the other, and, recapping those notes and reeling them back in. Because if you don't do that, then what ends up happening? They start commiserating themselves the following morning,
themselves out of it, right? Having dreams and talking themselves out of it.
And so you have to herd the cat back to
keep going back to their motivation.
Right? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?
I miss the days where we would put the buyers in our car and then they would have the conversation.
I still do this. So am I the last lone? To me, I'm all about efficiency, and so I'm all right, we're gonna get this done in 8 houses. We are going to spend this time together. I want to get it done. I
do want to spend time together, right?
Because why don't you put them in your car anymore?
It's just by choice. That's
what everybody says now. I'm literally the only one, I think.
But for the longest time, for the last couple years, there was only one house available, right? One or two homes. It wasn't like we were showing 10 homes because they weren't there.
Inventory has been at an all-time low for sure.
Inventory, and then we're going from one place clear across town to the other. So I do like building that relationship and having the buyers in the car so that I can hear them talk back and forth what they like, what they don't like. I can ask questions what they like, don't like, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important still throughout the process to continue that relationship with the buyers.
Right. And
so when they do have buyer's remorse, then you bring them back.
Absolutely.
Right. So I actually had that happen myself many years ago. I was in my 20s, so it was a long time ago.
Like 4 million years.
7 years ago. But we were buying our house, and we had told our agent, who was super sweet, she's a friend of mine, and that we didn't want a cookie cutter house. We didn't want an HOA. My husband at the time didn't want to be close to the houses next to us. And literally we go to look at all these houses, and 3 in a row, all in a subdivision, 15 feet away from each other. And we were just kind of like, well, none of these are what we were looking for. So we ended up kind of petering out with that agent. And then we ended up buying a house for $500,000 without her.
Oh my gosh.
I
Can
know.
you imagine? So and I honestly, like, I would love to know, like, what was going on in that agent's life at that moment, because how do you, first of all, if you're friends especially, but how do you not write down exactly what they're looking for? Because one of the things I think, you know, on our weekly to-go menu, not to-go menu, to takeout box, what is it called?
Virtual
to-go box.
Virtual to-go box.
Is the must-haves versus the would-be nice-ifs. And I'm not saying that they don't change. Obviously, once you see what's out there on the market, you know, things start to move a little bit. But understanding that is so important, because that's what you have to, again, circle back to and say, remember, we really, like, that house that doesn't have a garage is not going to be satisfactory to your husband, who has, you know, 3 cars, 2 motorcycles, and da-da-da-da-da, right? Like, it's always that thing. Well, I just think if we show it to him, yeah, we'll get there, but we need to actually stick to the plan until we've, you know, really exhausted the resources. So I think it's important to know what your buyers really want and then deliver what they're asking for, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Because why else are you doing it?
Yeah. And
it's a waste of everybody's time.
They feel like Jenny felt, like, you're not hearing me. You're not hearing what I wanted,
right?
What I want, what I'm looking for in a home. And it's important to revalidate it, right? Like, so Jenny, you're looking for a home that's not 12 to 15 feet, neighbors in the suburbs, right? Like, you're
no
looking
cookie
for something
cutter,
different.
no HOA.
Yeah. And then so you validate that as they're talking.
Maybe she didn't hear the no part. Maybe she's like, you want cookie cutter? It's the same house, like a spec home over and over and over again.
But then fast forward. So 4.5 years ago, I bought my own house without the husband. And my agent actually did listen to me. And I had forgotten what my must-haves were and my what-ifs. I had totally forgotten, because I was so skewed by the beautiful house that I was in, that I was like, yes, I want this house. And one of the things she said to me when we did not get the house, because someone was already offering on it, she said, yeah, but what is it that you like about this house? And I told her, and then she said, well, you said that you wanted a garage, but this doesn't have a garage. You said that you wanted a room to be able to have a studio. This does not have even a spare room, never mind a studio room. And she said, those are things that you really, really wanted. And I said, oh, yeah, that's right. I do really want
what
those.
What did this house have in it that you were like totally...
It looked really cool.
That's why staging is so
important.
I know.
She was enamored by all this.
I
love staging.
It was swanky. It was cool looking. It had a cool fence that I had never seen before.
Marble, granite, like whatever.
Yeah. So she ended up finding me a house that was mediocre looking, but then she explained to me, like, all the things that you want to do, you could totally do within your budget. And now my house looks super swanky, and it has a garage and a studio.
Awesome. And the studio is like as big as the entire house. Like, it's amazing. Yeah. And then she's honestly, you've done such a great job with that house.
Very cool.
But I think that is...
Thanks for sharing.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
That's important, right?
Staging is so huge. One of my favorite claims to fame, like, ever, because I truly believe in what I call staging with your own stuff. Listen, I think staging companies are great, and if that's in the budget, it's an awesome thing to do, to link up with somebody who does that professionally. I have a lot of sellers who, you know, are, again, they're not necessarily like ready to fork out the bucks up front, give or take, but I had this awesome property across the lake from my house in Wakaiba, and I'd shown it 3 different times, and it was like probably like low 700s, and this was years ago, like in the 2011 range or whatever. And I'd shown it over and over and over again. The people that lived in it were awesome, but they were really super eclectic. And so their entire house was like, it fit them. It was like their vibe, but you know, like she was an artist and like their usual rooms were not used as usual. And so it was really hard for like a buyer, especially when spending that much money, to really see themselves in the house. And so after her contract was over, I had just shown it to another buyer who again needed to have, like Jenny, the vision delivered to them. And so she called me and she said, hey, listen, my listing contract is up, but you've shown my house several times. You know, do you have any feedback for me? And you know, we really do need to sell it. Would you be willing to list it? And I'm like, I would. And let me give you this feedback. And I explained, you know, how just a couple little rearranging or whatever could actually make such a huge difference. So my then assistant at the time, I had a Jenny before the Jenny, Shannon, she was also amazing. We went in and spent the day there and just staged the whole house with stuff she already had, and had an all-cash buyer within 3 days.
That's fantastic.
Amazing, because staging really, really does matter, and vision matters, and use matters, and you know, things like that, like really understanding. And that's again hearing what the seller wants, right? Because they could have given up. I mean, they'd had their house in the market for 9 months and had all these showings. You know, I think when I went there the last time, there was like 43 business cards. That's back when people left their business cards on the counter. Do you still do that?
Sometimes.
I always do.
Sometimes.
Only because, listen, I know like the Supra, like obviously we know when they're there if you use that, of course, but I feel like it helps the seller to like know that somebody was there, because there's nothing as frustrating as when you like pack up your whole life and your whole house to leave and then nobody came in and you're like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Yeah. The process of listing your house is really tiring, you know, especially if you have kids or dogs or a life or alive, you know, all that good stuff.
So let's go back to that's for another episode.
I know. Let's talk about sellers now. Yeah.
So we're talking about buyer remorse, right? And so with the icing on the cake, how do we keep it from how do you keep it from unraveling in like this case where the buyer has the dream and she's like, I'm done.
She's just like, she has this panic dream. Okay, so I do believe in addressing data, but I also know that data, especially somebody that has a dream about a vibe, they don't give a poop about data. They have a vibe dream, okay? So you're going to have to really get real with your people and be empathetic, like I said, without being pathetic, and kind of address the reality of buyer's remorse. Say this is super common. Pretty much everybody feels this way at some point during the contract. So let's dig in and like, what's going on? How are you feeling? Are you still wanting to do? And like kind of check in and regroup what you wanted. And then you kind of address the data of what you got on the table versus what else is out there and what they're up against. So again, depending on her motivation, like if she's got a time, it really does depend on that exact person, because if they need to go like right now, then this is it, right?
Yeah, I love how you said, and this is what hit me, is like, for her, it's the vibe, right? If you just would have went straight with numbers at her, that would not have, like, she'd been like, I don't care about numbers right now, right? Like,
she's
right
like,
now,
me.
she's got to be the vibe. So it's like, okay, let's dig deep. Let's figure out the vibe. Yeah. Let's figure out where you were, how you're going to get there with the vibe. And then to reassure you, here are some numbers on why this makes sense.
Exactly.
And so that's important, because that is active listening. It's like the different personality types. And if you would have thrown numbers at her, it might have killed the deal, right?
100% would have killed the deal.
She's not a numbers person. She's a vibe person right now.
1,000% a vibe person. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's really important, because obviously when you're a chameleon, or when you're mirroring your clients, you do want to vibe with them. You don't always vibe with everybody. Guess what? That is a thing. Have you ever had a client or a customer, I guess, depending on what you call them, that you just don't vibe with, but you're like stuck together? What do you do with that?
God, I like to think like what pops to my mind first is like the answer, and honestly, like I vibe with them. Like,
I think so too. I just sort of like, you know.
And I'm not an analytical
I know my
person,
role,
right?
Like I know my role, and I know what my job is, and it's a job, and that's really what it is.
Right?
Do the job. And ultimately, you are friends. I mean, obviously, the goal with any client, in my opinion, is 5 transactions, whether it's their own personal 5 or their transaction plus 4 of their friends or family members. Like that, you want to be their real estate advisor for life. That's why else are you doing it, right? That is job security. But, you know, again, some people don't like, bubbly, fun, kind of quirky.
Here's
small
the deal.
little mom ladies.
We're going to talk about this next. I match their vibe, and that's the difference.
Which
right?
is, oh my gosh, yes, when we talk about lead conversion, that's super important.
We'll talk about that next. And so that's even like working with attorneys or engineers, they're very analytic.
Oh my gosh, so much fun to work with an engineer. It's like, I'm going to give you your closing package 3 days ahead of time.
So you match their vibe,
exactly.
right?
Like, I got you, boo. I know what your brain is like. Yeah.
You know what they're looking for.
100%. And not that everybody is like, can be stereotyped or whatnot, but you definitely want to know your audience and stay in your lane and do your job, which is data and listening to them and delivering results without emotion. And honestly, like, don't let something like, I had a dream about a bad vibe piss you off. Like, that to me is like, hey, they at least reach out to me so that we can work together to solve the problem. Let's connect. Let's be a human. Let's build that relationship that builds business. And that's what you're supposed to be doing the entire time you're in real estate.
And it's real for them, right? Like, for her, it was real for her. She had a dream, and it's her reality. And she's bringing it to the agent. And so, like, I love it. Like, let's connect. And
let's get some sage, baby. Let's go sage that house and vibe all day long. Your vibe attracts your tribe. All right. So, again, for our last bite here, I would, again, remind you that the thread of buyer's remorse is there, no matter if it's their first house or their 50th, or if it's $100,000 or 10 million. It's always there, even if just only slightly. And so your best course of combating that thread unraveling and everybody just being really out of sorts is just to listen actively, do diligent data entry, and then circle them back around and use what you know about what they want to their advantage and ultimately to everyone's end goal, which is happy buyers and buyers for life.
And thank you to Megan for submitting it. She submitted a video on what to do about buyer's remorse.
I know.
So thank you for submitting that video. And we encourage you to submit a video. And we have, because 40 years in the business, we haven't seen it all. However,
we've seen a lot. We are weathered and tethered for sure.
Let's not go without giving our weekly virtual to go box. So you can click that link and then you'll get your would be nice ifs.
Exactly. I know, right? And y'all remember, real estate, it's crazy.
And you don't have to be.